With IDEX and the Defense Startup Challenge, an effort is being made to indigenize everything in defense. It is up to the startups to literally pound us with many of their innovative ideas. These are the words of our Raksha Mantri, Nirmala Sitharaman. We will now start our fifth session on the importance of startup and innovation in aerospace and defense. For this session, I request the dignitaries to please come on the stage. I would first like to invite Mr. Vish Saratharaman, co-founder and CEO of Forge Coimbatore, to come on the dais and please moderate the session. I would also like to invite the dignitaries on the dais, please. Mr. Srinath Ravichandran, CEO, Agnikul, an IIT Madras incubated startup. Mr. Vishesh Rajaram, Managing Director, Special Incept Advisor, LLP. Thank you, sir. A brief about Mr. Vish Saratharaman, co-founder and CEO, Forge. Vish co-founded Forge with the vision to create and catalyze innovation-powered enterprise that harness the power at the intersection of technologies to solve real-world problems, creating economic gains and delivering social impact. Over a career spanning professional and entrepreneurial pursuits, having launched new products, businesses, and startups, he has now taken up the challenge of launching new institutions with impact, development, and global collaboration as core purpose. Vish has 18 plus years of experience in strategic business planning, product strategy, management, marketing, strategic alliances, and business development. He has 7 plus years of resident international work experience in USA, Canada, Sweden, Israel, and China. Vish received his PGDM from IIM Bangalore in 2010 and his B degree from CEG Chennai in 2000. I welcome Mr. Vish to please start the session.
Good afternoon. Firstly, my sincere thanks to Shekhar and the entire management and organizing team of AIDAT. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Shekhar wanted us to keep this to 40 minutes as opposed to 60 minutes. I will do that, Shekhar, but for something in return. I'm going to make a small change to the topic of the panel discussion. So the topic that was given to us reads Importance of Startups and Innovation in Aerospace and Defense. We're going to make a slight change. We're going to talk about importance of startups for innovation in aerospace and defense. Essentially, startups as the drivers of innovation, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. We're going to do it in 3 parts. Essentially, part 1, I will do a 10-12 minute keynote on IDEX, which is a very important program launched by the Ministry of Defense, and talk about how we are looking at fostering and promoting startups in the defense sector, followed by Srinath, who is co-founder and founder and CEO of Agnikul, and who will talk about the same topic from a founder's perspective, followed by Vishesh, who will talk about this topic from a funder's perspective. So that between the 3 of us, and maybe my perspective, you can call it the facilitator's perspective, the role as an incubator. Yeah. So a Forge, so we are an incubator set up in Coimbatore. We have a 20,000 square feet facility. We have labs where hardware products can be rapidly prototyped. So we have startups that are in smart city sector, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, smart manufacturing, and we've now moved into defense in a very big way. I'm going to cut straight into the presentation and talk about IDEX. So IDEX was a program launched by the Prime Minister at the DEF Expo in Chennai last year, and following which a rapid series of events have progressed. And this primarily looks at connecting startups directly with the military so that the innovation potential and capacity that the startups bring to the table can work directly with the military and bring significant strengthening and modernization of our forces. So the why IDEX? So the big question is essentially, we're looking to transform innovation, right? Transform innovation in the defense sector. Now, when we talk about innovation, I want to be very clear and specific. We're not talking about low-cost substitutes for imports, which is usually done through reverse engineering and reverse design. We're not talking about sponsored R&D projects that are given to academic institutions and R&D labs. We're not talking about innovation in that context. We are talking about innovation in the very specific context that startups will develop, co-develop, and co-produce technology-enabled products, military-grade products, and deliver directly to the military against orders. That's what we mean by innovation. So why this transformation? Why do we need this transformation, right? So the first thing is we want to expand the footprint of innovation in the context that we spoke about within the Indian defense, within the Indian military. Number two, accelerate the progress from a concept. It could be a science, it could be a technology, it could be a concept, but accelerate that progress from a concept to a product. And number three, exploit the leapfrogging opportunity that are presented by the advancing technologies. And when we talk about technologies, futuristic technology, we're talking about artificial intelligence, IoT, we're talking about additive manufacturing, we're possibly even talking about space applications in the defense sector, we're talking about AR and VR, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm just going to involve the audience a bit here, right? So the question I'm asking you, and I want to ask you to show your hands, can we count on startups to bring about this transformation, to transform innovation in the defense sector? I've given you three options. Option A, oh yes, a resounding yes, we can count on startups. Option B, no comments, I'll defer my judgment. Option three, no way, are you nuts? Right? Now, how many of you in the audience want to go with option A? And I want somebody, maybe my co-panelists can help me make sure that you remember the names or at least the hands that went up for option A. Yeah, option A? Okay, thank you. Option B? No comments. Looks like the coffee was bad. Okay, all right, a few hands. Option C? Okay, a few energetic hands. All right, let's just remember these hands as they go up, right? All right, now, I want to present this fact. We've seen the rise of startups in India. So for Amazon, we have Flipkart. For Uber, we have Ola. For PayPal, we have Paytm. For Airbnb, we have Oyo. And for Salesforce, we have Zoho, and we have several other SaaS. We are sitting in the SaaS capital of the world, right? So our startups have, in fact, managed to create the kind of transformative disruption that these other startups, Western-based startups, have produced in their respective regions. So we have had some significant track record. So there is something for us to count on when it comes to startups. Let's look at how we did the disruption and transformation in the automotive space. And we spoke a lot about moving from the automotive space to the aerospace space. Imagine we decided not to allow companies to produce cars and sell cars. We wouldn't have had leadership status either in the two-wheelers or in the four-wheelers. Imagine we gave it out to research agencies to develop compact car components and engines. We wouldn't have had a global leader in compact cars and two-wheeler industry. So that's again indication of the fact that when we allow free market forces to take up, and when we allow some facilitation, and we allow technology to take a front seat, startups can in fact do amazing innovation, not just in technology, not just in product or in the service that's delivered, but also in the business process and in the business model. So we can really, really count on startups. And for the last 10, maybe 12 years, we've seen a real coming together of the startup ecosystem in India when it comes to technologists like the one I have in my panel, and we have VCs also like the one I have in my panel. Some of these stakeholders are really working together to take it to another level altogether, and we can count on them to do that for defense as well. So once again, I'm going to play this question and see if there is anyone who went with B and C who want to change their minds and move to A. I'll give you more time to do that. No problem. So what we're really trying to do with IDEX, the mission or the core purpose, so to speak, is to catalyze startups to come up with breakthrough technologies, world-class products, working directly with the Indian military in very specific chosen technology areas and sectors. And I say sectors, technology domains, product domains. The 4 principles, sort of the guiding principles with which we're going about doing this process, I just wanted to shed some light on how we're thinking through when it comes to the strategy and the implementation of the IDEX program. The first one is co-creation. Right? So here we're really talking about how can we get access to the top talent that today is highly ambitious about becoming entrepreneurs in their own right. Maybe 20 years ago, some of our top talent would have looked at the West, but today they are saying, if you give me an opportunity, I will definitely build an enterprise right here in the country. We have very ambitious researchers, technologists, IIT Madras is full of them, and they're all saying we have entrepreneurship ambitions as well. Right? 20 years ago, they will have happily taken a sponsored project and delivered a bunch of papers, but today they're saying, you know what, we want to build enterprises. We want to deliver products and see if those can become sustaining enterprises. So that co-creation directly with the military is what we want to facilitate. So rapid innovation is what we're talking. Open innovation, right? So so IDEX is not going to create more institutions. IDEX is not going to create more labs. It's basically going to try to reuse every single form of infrastructure, resource, services, expertise that's already out there in the form of, let's say, DRDO labs or the test facilities at the different military units and commands. Use all of that and combine that with the innovation capacity and potential that startups bring to the table. That open innovation is what we are really trying to achieve. And we are we're trying to take a part of this overall indigenization opportunity. And if you look at the Naval Indigenization Plan, they have a separate section for futuristic technologies. All of that can be wonderfully served through the IDEX platform. So we have a very limited, narrow focus, and we want to succeed there. The VC model, right? So break away from the sponsored research model. A lot of what DARPA did in the US ever since from the 50s up until very recently, right, is more program management of funds that were given to these institutions who were doing bespoke research and R&D to cater to the needs of the US military. But they themselves figured that the DARPA model was not helping them move in particular areas where commercial technologies had far outstripped where military stood. So they went with the new model called the DIU, the Defense Innovation Unit. In many ways, what IDEX is trying to do is to replicate the DIU model within the limitations and the constraints that we have within the Indian defense sector context. The fourth is dual use, right? So this is basically to allow these entrepreneurs, these innovators to say, hey, let's say artificial intelligence, I want to build something on, let's say, security and surveillance systems using machine vision, right? And I want to cater to the needs of, let's say, the Army or the Border Security Force. But what if the same technology and product can also be commercialized in the civilian sectors, right? We're encouraging them to do that. To that extent, this can subsidize the costs of, and therefore the risks of allowing some of these entrepreneurs to become successful, right? And we're not going to go after their lives in terms of owning the IP, no major, this is not contract by death. We're really saying, you know what, keep the IP, right? You own the IP, even if it was co-developed, you own the IP, but essentially if there are some contexts which are very sensitive, maybe the government will come in and say, we need a government purpose rights or a margin rights, just to preempt certain undesirable outcomes. So what we've done so far, just to fast track and give you a snapshot of where we've come to. So in August, September last year, a set of 15 challenges were launched under the Defense India Startup Challenge banner. 4 challenges from Army, 5 from Indian Navy, and 6 from Air Force. 15 challenges. In a span of about 2 months, 2.5 months, we had over 800 applications that were received in total. coming from individual innovators, startups, and MSMEs. And we did subsequent rounds of very rigorous screening and selection. And some of the committee members that served and helped us are here. Dr. Shivakumar, I can see Captain Pranisha. Thank you, sirs. With their help, we were able to down select this number down to 42. So we have today 42 of these startups, what we refer to as IDEX startups, who will each get up to rupees 1.5 crores grant. It's what you call non-dilutive capital. It's a grant money, right? And up to 1.5 crores, and we expect them to fast-track their prototype development in order to be able to deliver a military-grade product against those challenges to the respective Army, Navy, or Air Force unit. And the process is that we will now work with them, put the milestones, and then release this money in tranches. And if they don't do well, and if they're not able to meet the deliverables or the milestones, we will write off those losses and move forward. So it's the VC kind of an approach that we're taking. Just to give a glimpse in terms of what these challenges are, so the first 4 are from Army, and the next 5 are from Navy, and the last 2 are from Air Force. So you can have a sense of the spectrum of technologies and solutions that we are trying to encompass. And this was the first set of 11 challenges, and then we had 4 more coming from Air Force and also from HAL. And we spoke about the illegal usage of drones, so that's already something that's been given out on IDEX, and we've had some fantastic innovative proposals that have come so far. So we're hoping that some of these can really translate into military-grade products. And to sweeten the deal, it is also being considered very seriously, possibly even an amendment to the DPP, that when these services headquarters issue these challenges, they will have to back it with a minimum order quantity. Lieutenant General Subramaniam was there in that conversation we had in Coimbatore early this week. So we're trying to do everything possible within the MOD to make sure that there is skin in the game, and there is a sense of outcome that when the military units co-create and co-develop these products, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and they're not all purely academic pursuits. I've spoke about this. Let me just quickly skip. So that number is basically 42. There's a reason why it's still 28, because the next 14 were basically selected after the Model Code of Conduct set in on the 8th of March. So we're not allowed to make announcements respecting the MCC. So we will defer the announcement of the next 14 until when the elections are over, but we know we have 42 on the table. And to facilitate this process, in order to be able to implement and realize this vision of IDEX, we believe the role of incubators is very essential, very critical. And so there are 6 incubators. You have 5 on the picture there, the 5 logos. The one that is missing is the incubator at IIT Delhi. So IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad, the 4 leading academic institutions attached incubators in the country, and then we have the 2 private incubators, T-Hub in Hyderabad and ourselves, Forge, out of Coimbatore. So that's the mantra that we're going with. So it's Forge for Forge. And I'll leave it at that. I will not take questions, but at this stage, but I'm going to open it to my fellow panelists, the first of which is going to be Mr. Srinath Ravichandran, who is the founder and CEO of Agnikul. It is a startup in the aerospace, in the space sector, space technologies domain. They're incubated out of IIT Madras, and I'm going to invite Srinath to make a quick presentation, also self-introduce. He is 6 years my junior in CEG, but I would leave it at that. I'll let him introduce himself. Welcome, Srinath.
Thank you, Vishesh. I know Vishesh is on stage as well. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to keep this really quick. First of all, thanks for AIDAT for having me here, and thanks for Mr. Shekhar. I would actually have a special thanks for Mr. Shekhar, because I think the company is sort of in existence today in this form because of him. He has known me from the time when this was just an idea in my mind, and here I am speaking in front of an audience today. So thank you, sir, for that. So I'm here from a company called Agnikul Cosmos. What we are trying to do is build a small launch vehicle, a rocket that can take 100 kgs to space. I will get into a little bit about myself as I go through this, and I'll keep this moving. So just a little bit of funda, and some of you might already know this. Today, there are a lot of small satellites coming up, right? And I mean like ones you can pretty much hold in your hand, like one that's in the picture. And it takes about 6 months to 1 year to build it. A lot of universities have tried this in India and also outside. But it takes a long time to launch them. And also it really costs not much. You can do it off the, commercially off-the-shelf products. You can build a satellite that works. But again, because of compliance and other things, it takes about $40,000 per kg to launch it. Why is all this happening? Because small satellites don't have dedicated vehicles for themselves today. There is a ride share that has to be done. It's sort of like the bus versus the car example, right? So if you want to go from point A to point B, you can either wait for a bus, which is what is available today. So you have to wait for the bus, you have to wait for the right bus, you have to be at the right place, and it'll drop you somewhere around where you want to go. As opposed to an auto or a cab, which will take you pretty much to the doorstep of where you want to go. And that's what we are trying to build. That is the business case for this. There is a reasonable market potential for this. It's about $1 billion a year industry. A lot of people are trying to do this. And that's because about 500 or 600 satellites are expected to be launched every year. I think it's already over 300 now, and we expect it to be over 500 the next 3 to 4 years. So that brings us back to Agnikul. So that is why we are here. Of course, we are a bunch of aerospace enthusiasts, but beyond that, there is a business model, and we are able to attract some investors. I'm sure you'll hear more about that in the next presentation. But so that's what we are trying to build. The picture that you see here is a scale rendering of how our vehicle would look when we finish building it. So how are we trying to specifically solve this problem? I think we are trying to do 3 things. We are reducing the time to launch to within less than 2 weeks or so, which will automatically reduce the cost. It is not like the cost is the motive, but time is the motive, and it'll end up impacting cost. And obviously, there's no ride share. Those are tall claims. How are we planning to do that? 3 differentiators. 1, don't build anything big. Build something small and reliable, and try to copy paste it as many times as possible. So that's the long way of saying modular design. So the center picture there you can see is actually a 3D printed, engine's plastic model that we have. It's a 1:2 scale model of the first stage engine. So this took about 24 hours of printing or something, and I think that is the differentiator. Usually it takes weeks, if not months, to actually build a rocket engine's thrust chamber and nozzle, which is what you're seeing. So that's use 3D printing wherever you can. And finally, tailor your vehicle to the payload between 0 and 100 kgs. If you have a customer coming in and saying he wants to launch 40 kgs, do not charge him more, charge him the same. 100 kgs also, you charge them the same per kg cost. That's possible if you have engines that you can take off or remove. If you have tanks that you can customize and so on. So building a customizable vehicle is how we are trying to differentiate ourselves. So I think this slide is important because I will connect this to the whole concept of why I'm here speaking today about startups and R&D in aerospace. If you see competition across the world, there are people trying to do this, but I think we score very highly on 3D printing and on modular design, and also on tailoring the vehicle itself to the payload. There are other companies like Rocket Labs and Vector who are trying to do this, but at a different cost level and at a different level of modularity, not like us. And I think this is important from a startup standpoint, right? So one reason, I have 3 reasons why I think startups and R&D are going hand in hand. One, I think, would be from this. You are able to reimagine things from the scratch. You don't have to start from where people have left you already. So that helps you directly innovate. So coming to other work we have done, there is a lot of stuff in different areas that we'll have to do to actually build a full vehicle together. And we've done quite a bit of progress on a lot of this, mostly so on additive manufacturing and 3D printing. There has been some recognition for us. We've gotten through the DARPA Launch Challenge, which is about launching rockets anywhere, anytime, which is coincidentally our tagline as well. And so they didn't have the affordably part. We have the affordably part as well. So yeah, given DARPA, I understand. But anyway, I think so we applied for that and we got through the first round. It was a validation in terms of both the technology and in terms of the whole business model itself. And also, I think there is a strong initiative from ISRO in terms of privatizing the space industry, and we are trying to play our role in that and trying to do our best we can to improve the space sector R&D in India. So where do we work? We work out of the National Center for Combustion R&D, that's NCCRD, at IIT Madras. So it is one of the largest combustion centers in the world of this kind. A lot of propulsion-related research happens, not only just rockets, starting from automotives to anything that basically burns is being researched there. So jet engines and whatnot. So that is where we work out of, helps our roadmap to go faster. And that's the team itself. So I think on that we have, to do this, we need a lot of support both from investors and from people who have already built and launched rockets. So we're talking to at least 6 or 7 ISRO advisors now, and we're working very closely with different entities of ISRO like VSSE and SHAR to make sure that we will be on time and do this on time, and to also keep in mind that we need not reinvent the wheel. So on that note, let me just put a couple of other points, right? So one thing I said is, as a startup, what are we able to do? We are able to reimagine things from the scratch. You don't need to start off from where you already had or infrastructure you already had. 2, you try to do it faster and leaner because you are starting today, and obviously technology has caught up, right? So if you had started 15 years before, you most likely have stuff that was based on technology then. If you start today, then you can go faster. I think this is something that is in the core of companies like SpaceX and Tesla. And if you look at their models, what they're trying to really do is take the technology or the physics of the 60s and make it work with the 21st century technology. I think the more we actually are inspired by that, that is great. And that is what, as a startup, you can do. You can use today's technology to do your stuff. And finally, I think, and this is, I think, the biggest thing, you can encourage other people to start. So if you need an economy to be growing and you need to be on the top of technology, you need a lot of people to try a lot of new things. And I think no better place for inspiration to come from than seeing someone else who has done something from the scratch. So I think that is why startups and R&D go hand in hand, and it should be in aerospace as well. Thank you on that note.
And particularly reflect on the topic of the panel discussion, which is how you think startups are going to be drivers for innovation.
So in terms of, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of quick background, I run a fund called Special Invest. This is an early stage venture capital fund that invests in deep tech or disruptive technologies. And space, aerospace specifically, is one of the domains that we spend time studying opportunities and formulating our thesis. So I'll spend the next few slides just talking through some of our thesis ideas, and we'll sort of roll back to the co-panelists for a discussion thereafter. Because one of the big things we realize is that space gives us the ability to sort of send satellites out, collect a bunch of information on 2 specific categories. One is observation or imagery of the Earth, and 2 is sort of communication. As you sort of break that down further, it opens a variety of opportunities in logistics, in supply chain, in GPS, in communications, in remote sensing. I think one of the big things we're seeing that didn't exist before, that's sort of opening up, is some of the newer markets that are sort of driven by IoT, driven by 5G adoption, driven by business ideas that are benefiting out of location or location sensing, including the likes of Uber and Ola. Sort of stepping back at a very high level, if I look at what's happening in space 5 years ago to now and what sort of are the big drivers for change, first things first, the launch costs have come down significantly, and this is a direct result of some moves of privatization in the Western world, where we've seen a steady decline in the launch cost per kg. This sort of is now encouraged or led to more opportunities for people to send satellites up. Right, the cost of launch and access to launch vehicles to launch these satellites have sort of increased. Cost of launch has come down. Number 2, the second trend we've seen is miniaturization of satellites, right? What was a large PC 5 years ago is what's sitting in our pockets as mobile phones or devices. So you no longer need an extremely large satellite to go out there. You possibly can do that with smaller satellites, right? The computational power is going up. The optics have gotten better. They've gotten cheaper. So a lot of large devices that existed 10 years ago can now sort of be in the size of a CubeSat or a microsat. So a combination of these two, right? One, the launch cost coming down, and 2, satellites getting powerful or computationally better has sort of led to an interesting opportunity of small satellites and launch vehicles for small satellites. Clearly, so in full disclosure, we've invested in Agnikul. We're the lead investor in the company, and we believe that this is an interesting opportunity to play out. Space is also getting, no pun intended, but the space is getting heated. We've seen a lot of action in the western part of the world, and in the last decade, we've seen over 150 investments being made in this sector. India is, of course, picking up. Big concern has always been regulatory, but that's opening up. We've been seeing good signs from ISRO showing that there is interest for encouraging private sector to participate in the innovation curve. And I think we're happy to play an active role there. Great. Well, transfer it back to Vish.
All right, thanks, Vishesh. Why don't you just come on, sit down. So maybe can we have a few questions? Have time for a couple of questions? Okay. So any questions from the audience? So yeah, can you pass a mic to him?
So thank you, sir. So I think I understood the question as, do we have an idea about the reliability? Is that the question, or testing? The testing. Sure. So we're planning to do our tests within some of the smaller tests within this facility, the National Center for Combustion R&D itself. So it has some facilities for doing rocket testing. And for the rest of it, actually, we have been speaking to VSSE, and they are letting us at least do a couple of our engine tests within VSSE itself. It's not final, but hopefully it'll work out. Beyond that, I think it is about learning from those tests and then building out a similar facility ourselves till you get the perfect performance that you want. So that's... Yes, sir. Full-scale tests, yes.
Questions? Yeah, there's one hand up there.
The question is for Vish. This innovation for defense and excellence, it is only for Coimbatore industry, or?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. It's for the entire country.
No. Can we approach? We are from Hosur.
Yeah, of course. Okay. You can. So right now, the call for applications for those challenges, the window is closed. But maybe I don't know if I mentioned this, but the individuals, you can be an individual innovator, you can still be working for a company, or you could be a researcher, a scientist working in an academic institution. You also can apply. So that comes under individual innovators category. Second category is startups category. They can apply. Third, also MSMEs. So there are three categories through which we are inviting applications for these challenges. Right now, the challenges, the application window has been closed. It will once again come up when the next set of challenges are issued.
When it will come up again?
Elections time.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions?
I think we will have questions outside. So thank you, Mr. Vish, and the panel members for the excellent session. We all have ideas, but translating those ideas into something tangible and beneficial is what separates doers from thinkers. I request Mr. Srinath, a young member and executive, to please present, yes, a startup